This video is going to focus mostly on creating a vector portrait. We are going to be using Illustrator. One of the great things about Illustrator is obviously because it is an Adobe product, it works really well with a lot of the other Adobe suite programs, including After Effects. Yeah, so our example here is going to be Winona Ryder. This is her vector portrait. Really quickly, I'm going to show you an image that we used to create that. So this was just an image after a Google search to kind of download this file. Also, one thing I do want to point out is this is very high resolution picture. Yeah, so you do want to make sure that your images, when you're doing your search, you do a search for a large image. Mainly because you don't want to be vectoring, and as you zoom in to get some of the details, all of a sudden the guide photo is too pixelated. All right, so we're going to kind of get started with this. I'm going to start a new document over here, so I'm going to go File, New. And then I can kind of check what my default is here. So yeah, it looks like we can probably go with this. So I'll probably go with 8.5 by 11. That looks like that's a good width and height to kind of work with. And drop that off over here. Okay, so here's my canvas. I'm also going to bring in an image. Remember, I kind of mentioned when Google searching, yeah, I got an image over there. For you folks, you may actually end up using your own personal photo or personal photo that you've located. Yeah, so it doesn't obviously have to be Winona Ryder, but for our example, it will be. So I'm going to do File, Place over here. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and select the image. If you notice, this is the WebP format. This is kind of a way for them to protect their images, but it does import into Illustrator. If it's a JPEG, if it's a GIF, or PNG even, any of those files will work perfectly for this particular step. Once you have that selected, you're then going to click on the Place option, and you're going to notice your cursor has transformed. Okay, so now we have this upper right-hand corner, upper left-hand corner. This is going to kind of, wherever you click, that's where the upper left-hand corner of that particular image is going to drop off at. So let's say I click right here. Yeah, you notice it kind of anchors itself there. Now, immediately, you probably are noticing this image is very large. I can shrink it down, so I'm going to go to my selection tool over here. If you notice, as I hover over it, it gives me some additional information. So shortcut is V. Yeah. The other thing too is I'm going to grab one of these corners and I want to shrink it down, but I also want to keep the proportion. Yeah. So if I just click and drag, what will happen is I can do some weird stuff. Yeah. So I can end up squishing or like making things like way too wide. Yeah. So be careful about that when you are scaling this down. Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in here and I'm gonna scale this down back. Yeah, sorry, looks like I gotta bring it back in. Here's my image, dropping it off right there. Okay, so when I'm scaling it down, I'm just gonna make sure I'm gonna grab the corner, but on my keyboard I'm also gonna hold down Shift and drag. Yeah, so Shift, drag, and then always let go of your cursor before you let go of the shift. Yeah, and that'll keep it in proportion. You notice you can also click within the image after you do a shift drag, and you can kind of move it around. Okay, so I do want this centered. I can sort of see the edges of my canvas. I do want to make sure that it encompasses the image. Yeah, so something like this would probably work right about there. Yeah. Okay, now one thing you might notice is this is like almost a perfect fit. It is kind of sticking out the bottom a little bit. That's not really that important. Honestly, you can have a lot of white space. You can have your image kind of like sticking out the sides or the top or the bottom or whatever. No big deal. Remember, the only thing we really care about right now is to make sure that the image, we have what we want to turn into our vector in the canvas. Yeah, and that's all that matters. So if we take a look at this one right here, you can kind of tell, right? Like I'm not really going to care too much about like the neck or her body. We're basically going to be focusing on her face, yeah, and her hair. All right, okay, so that's going to be our guide image. In fact, I'm going to go to my layer over here, double click in there and choose this. So I'm going to rename that to guide image layer. Yeah, so that'll be my, that'll let me know that's the basic image. Eventually what'll happen is you end up like just hiding this image or completely deleting that layer. It's only for us to kind of create our vectors above. Yeah. Okay. The other thing we're going to do with this guide image layer, it should always stay in one position. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and click on next to the eyeball, that little space. So that'll lock in that image, and that way it won't accidentally like slide anywhere or you won't accidentally like put any vectors within this layer. Okay, now we're going to make additional layers. In fact, there will be quite a bunch. If you take a look over here, there are quite a few layers. You may or may not end up using as many layers as I did, but we're gonna run through that really quickly. But let's get to our first layer. So if you go down to the bottom of your layers window, you're gonna see this plus sign over here. If you can click on that button, that'll add a new layer. Notice it's labeled layer 2. Let's be specific about what we're going to be working with. Yeah, so it is really a good idea to make sure you're labeling your layers as you go. I will be changing this layer 2 into the skin base layer. Yeah, so skin base layer, that kind of give you an idea of what I'm going for. The other thing we're going to do here is we're going to choose our color. Yeah, but before we do that, let's take a look at this over here. Okay, right now it looks like it's highlighted, right? So that means it gives you the impression that the layer is fully selected. However, there are going to be some changes that we're going to be making. We want to make sure that the layer is fully selected. Yeah, so to make sure that it is fully selected, we're going to go to this little circle on the side, and then if you can click on that circle, it's going to have another little circle that appears around it. That's how you know for sure that layer is fully selected. Okay, all right, the tool that we're going to be using is going to be the pen tool. Yes, it's this one right over here. Okay, kind of looks like an old school pen. Yeah, one of those ones that you would maybe dip in ink. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. If you need your shortcut, right, you kind of saw it on there. It's P. Now here's your settings for that. You're going to notice we have our control bar up here. Now some of us may not have it, or it may disappear along the way. If that ever happens, remember you can just go to your window menu. Yeah, so if you can go to your window menu up here, it's pretty long. It's not going to fit within the framing of this video, but just know this is where you can locate it. So right now you can see control is checked. Yeah, if I click on it again, it'll go away. Yeah, but if I click on it a second time, yeah, here it is. It's back again. This part's very important. Yeah, so please make sure control is usually up. The other thing, if you ever lose your layers, yeah, you can go into window, and then there it is, right? So just make sure that it's checked. And yeah, I know we also have our toolbars on the side. Yeah, so that's a big one as well for our little tools. All right, okay, so we have our pen tool selected. The next thing we're gonna do is probably select a color. So I'm gonna kind of zoom in on Winona's face over here. Okay, what you'll notice right off the bat is people have a lot of shades in their face, yeah, a multitude of colors. We're just gonna choose one base color, and so we want something that's kind of in the middle. We don't want anything that's like too much highlighted, like this area over here. We don't want anything that's like too shaded either. Yeah, that'll kind of change the whole. That'll kind of make things a little bit too extreme on either end. Okay, the way we can sample a color from here is if you kind of go down to this particular tool right here, so the eyedropper tool. Okay, shortcut is I, yeah, and we can click on that one. What that'll let me do is it'll let me select a color, and then you'll know that it's working because you'll see it changing, yeah, in this foreground color over here. Yeah, so again, we're trying to stay away from this area that's a little bit too light. We're trying to stay away from this area that's a little bit too dark. Okay, again, we want that mid-range, so maybe right around here will work pretty well. One thing I've noticed, especially when people are working in vectors, is they usually end up kind of lowering the saturation a little bit as we go. So just keep that in mind. You may end up making some edits. Yeah. All right. Okay. So now that we've selected the color, we can jump back to your pen tool. Yeah. So press P or jump back up to here. A couple other things. You may notice there's a number over here for you folks. If there is a number, it's going to give what's called a stroke. Stroke is basically an outline. So if you imagine you drew something and it'll have like a little border on the outside. Yeah. Now, for our purposes, we don't really need a stroke on the outside. We're going to let the colors basically do the talking. So we're going to make sure that stroke is off. There's two ways you can do this. If you see a number in here, you can just type in 0 and the stroke weight will then no longer exist. Or you can go to this particular button over here and choose the red slash, yeah, and that'll lock it out and you won't have a stroke over there. The other thing we're going to do here is take the opacity and kind of drop it. So right now it's at 100. I'm probably going to put this at 70. And the main reason why is when we're making our shape, we want to be able to see the what we're making our shape from, yeah. So we do want to see below to the guide layer. If we can't see over there, there's going to be a point in time while you're vectoring that you're just kind of guessing, yeah, and that's definitely not ideal. All right, so that's basically our pen tool settings, yeah? So again, we chose a color, we removed the stroke, and then we dropped our opacity to 70, yeah? Now, if you can double check to make sure that this circle is selected, yeah? If it is not selected, make sure you do select it and then double check on your opacity because it may have switched back to 100%, yeah? Which is, again, we need to be able to see through this. All right. Okay. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do our shape making. If you notice for this part, we're basically going to be working on this area. Yeah. So we're gonna do the skin base for Winona over here. Okay. So using the pen tool, I'm gonna go and start at a point. Yeah. So I can kind of see right over here. This is kind of where we have a good starting point. So I'm kind of click right there. Okay, if you notice I'm kind of zooming in and out over here. If you're on a trackpad, if you hold down the option key, that'll let you kind of slide forward and backwards. Another thing you can use, I believe, on your mouse is you can kind of use your scroll, yeah? You also have these guys right here that kind of let you slide it side by side. If you are on your trackpad, two-finger click, and I believe you can also, sorry, not two-finger click, but two-finger slide will let you kind of slide back and forth, top, bottom, yeah? So up to you, yeah, if you want to try that out. All right, but I'm going to start my first vector here, so I'm going to click one time, and you'll notice, like, after I click, yeah, this is the initial anchor point. We are going to come back to this. This anchor point is your first click. It will also be your last click, or you're going to have an open shape, which is, again, not recommended. All right, now what I'm noticing over here is there's a little bit of a straight area over here and then a change in direction. Yeah, so there's like a curve that's going from here to here. To get that curve, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to click, holding down the mouse or the trackpad, and I'm going to drag. Yeah, so click and drag and kind of create that roundedness over there. Yeah, now yours doesn't have to be exactly the same, but again, try to get that space over there. Okay, and then there's our second anchor point. Between these two anchor points, you'll notice it tries to create a shape in between, yeah, which is great. That's what we want to do here. All right, now we're going to move on to the next anchor point. We are going to go with the more probably the simpler way to vector, yeah, which is going to be resetting our anchor every time for our next click. Yeah. Now there is a method. Sometimes you see people will just not do this step, and it is possible. Usually that's for people who are a little bit more experienced in Illustrator, and so we're gonna kind of leave that to the side for now. If you decide like, oh, you want to try that method, just let me know, yeah, and then we can kind of work through that together. All right, so right over here is my anchor point. I just finished it. What I'm then going to do is tell it that I'm going to move on, yeah? So I'm gonna go to this anchor point right here. I'm gonna hold down the option key, yeah? So the option key, and then I'm gonna click over here, yeah? And you notice what'll happen over there is it'll close out, yeah? Now, this is only, if you notice, I said option click. That's because I'm used to working in Photoshop as well, which has a pen tool. However, because we are in Illustrator, you don't have to actually do that. You can just go to this anchor tool right here and then just click one time, yeah, and that'll clean that information out, yeah. So just something to keep in mind. If you notice, I'm going back and option clicking every once in a while, yeah. That's basically where that's coming from, yeah. Just my experiences. All right, so now we're gonna notice, like, we're gonna kind of change directions right over here. So this one kind of bumps out a little bit, and then we got our ridge that kind of goes down over here, yeah. So the main thing that you're looking for is where do the curves kind of stay consistent, and then you want to click where it starts to change directions, yeah. So I'm seeing over here pretty consistent curve, so I'm going to go right here and I'm going to click and drag, again, just trying to get that roundedness on the side. Okay, and then I'm going to go to this anchor point and say that was great, click on it again. Okay, and then now this third anchor point is now untethered, and whatever you do next will not be affected by your next click and drag, yeah. Now notice if you just straight up click, it's going to make straight lines. We don't want that, yeah, especially for organic things. There are a few times you are going to want straight lines, and so if that's the case, you just click, yeah, but that is not looking good for Winona's face. So what we're going to do here instead is, again, click, drag, yeah, and then one thing you also notice is like this kind of has like almost a seesaw look, yeah. Okay, gonna jump back to here, and then I'm gonna kind of speed things up a little bit, yeah, but if you notice, I'm gonna I'm gonna click, drag, yeah, bring out these handles, then go back to the anchor point, click again, click, drag, yeah, not bad, click on here. Okay, by the way, if you ever end up like creating a point and let's say it's sort of like this where you're like, oh no, I messed up. Yeah, so it looks like I got a little bit too much of the chin over there. No problem. On your keyboard, all you have to do is do a Command Z. Yeah, so Command Z, that'll let you undo. Yeah, so that'll let you undo your most recent click. Yeah, so again, click on here. Command Z will let you jump back in time as well. You can also kind of go into window, and I believe there's a history option. If you click on that, that'll give you everything that's undoable. Yeah, which is pretty helpful sometimes. All right, so going over here again, we're at the chin. Okay, I am going to be ignoring the neck. Yeah, this is your decision when you're working on your own personal portrait, if you want to include it or not. I'm just kind of going with this style. Honestly, it is a little bit trickier with people who have really long hair. This style where you're just kind of cutting off the neck tends to work really well with portraits of people who have shorter hair. Yeah, so just a FYI. Yeah. Okay, but here I go again, kind of going around over here. Yeah, so this part is looking pretty okay. Right now, this part is a little bit tricky because you'll notice like there's hair. There's also shadow, so it's hard to tell. So there will be times when you're kind of guessing. I'm not going to follow the contour of the hair over here. I can kind of intuitively figure like, oh, there's a little bit of like her face back here. So I'm just going to click and drag over here. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom out just so we can kind of see what's going on so far. Yeah, so you can see I'm not clicking a lot. I am clicking quite a few times, but not like an insane amount. Yeah. Okay, and then from here, the cool part is I'm not going to follow the hair because I'm going to have my own layer for hair anyway. So like from here, it becomes a matter of kind of just making sure. Yeah, so just kind of making sure that it just, wherever the hair reveals skin, we should be able to see that. Yeah, so if you notice, I'm kind of going out here. I'm kind of over exaggerating a bit, but if you can just imagine Winona without her hair, yeah, this is kind of what we're doing here. Yeah, not her hair. It's like a little bit, this is like peanut head a little bit, yeah, but that'll probably work. Okay, now I'm on to my last click right over here. Yeah, so right over here again, not really too worried about that. That'll be controlled by the hair. So I'm gonna go back to my last click right here. Just do a little click and drag. Yeah, so remember your first click is your last click for your anchor points. All right, and then there's our skin base layer. Yeah, so we're gonna zoom out over here. We can kind of take a look at it. I already can guess that some of you folks are not impressed thus far. Yeah, but this is gonna work out. I'm gonna go to the guide image over here, and then for the skin base layer, actually, I'm gonna put this at 100 just so I can kind of see it. Yeah, and then when I click on when I click on this selection tool, yeah, and click outside, you can kind of see what's been made. Yeah, so this is her shape, and yes, we are gonna turn this peanut into Winona Ryder. All right, so off to an interesting start, right? Off to an interesting start. So that was the skin base layer. We are good with that. So I'm going to now go to the eyeball and hide that. Yeah, and then our next thing is we're going to add a little bit more structure. So skin base layer, I'm going to actually bring it back, lock it, and then hide it. Yeah, so now we have no open layers. No problem though. Let's make our new layer. Okay, next thing that we'll probably focus on is we can kind of go with the hair, I guess. Yeah, so I'm going to start off with the hair next. Yeah, so just like with the skin base layer, double click on it. Here's our hair base layer. Yeah, and once again, for this one, I'm just going to be selecting a base color. So we can go back to eyedropper or press I. Okay, let's find a intermediate color, right? So no highlights and no none of the shadow areas. Yeah, so somewhere around here is looking pretty good. Kind of like that. Yeah, and then again, remember you can always actually end up changing these colors later. Yeah. Okay, now once you have that color, make sure for your hair base layer, yeah, we do need to super select it. So I'm going to click on, make sure that circle is selected. We're going to double check our pen tool settings. So we're going to go to the pen tool. Okay, if you notice that layer color, wonderful, it went in and dropped in over there. Also, our stroke remains at 0. Our opacity, however, jumps back to 100 because it is a new layer. That's the default. We're going to turn that one also into 70. Okay, and then we should be good to go. All right. So now it's all about doing the hair portion. Okay, the hair is a little bit You're gonna have to make some judgment calls, yeah, especially those of you who have like longer hair, because you'll notice that there are going to be strands of hair. Please don't do this to yourself where you're just grabbing and recreating every single hair. That's horrible. Don't do that to yourself. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna again this universe is a little bit cleaner than our universe. Yeah. So we're not gonna have as many stray hairs. I'm gonna click right here. Yeah. And then once again, I'm gonna go through that process. Right. So go find the main curves. Click and drag. That's looking pretty good. I'm done with that anchor point. So number 2 is done. Okay, remember this is our first anchor point. We're coming back. Okay, right over here, not a lot is changing. So I'm just gonna kind of do a click and drag right there. Again, if you're on like a surface that looks kind of flat, you want to kind of imagine this is kind of like a seesaw, and then both people are off the ground at about the same height. Yeah, so you want it to look kind of balanced right there. If you notice that this gets turned around, so if you're clicking on here and you got the shape, but it's kind of looking like that, where it's like in like this, you're not setting yourself up very well for your next point. Yeah, it's going to try to curve downwards. Yeah, which is not what we're going for. Okay, so again, click and drag and then try to get that seesaw. Yeah, so right about there. I'm then going to click on the anchor point onto the next one. Okay, again, looks like I have a little bit of a dilemma here. I'm not going to take a lot of those baby hairs, and then click right there. Okay, click drag, click on your anchor point, click drag, click on your anchor point, click drag, yeah, click on your anchor point, and so on and so forth. Okay, it is fun sometimes to work with these little strands of hair. So occasionally, if it looks like it's gonna help with like the body or whatever of the hair and make it kind of like a little bit more fun, I'll include them. So if you notice right over here, I'm just gonna kind of take one of these strands. Yeah, so I'm click dragging again back to here, then maybe stopping off a little bit right over here. Then this one I'm probably gonna have to zoom. Yeah, so there's the hair. Okay, some of this is your own artistic merits. You're kind of using your artistic judgment on here as well. So it doesn't have to obviously be an exact copy. Thank goodness, because I'm definitely not doing that right now. But I'm kind of guesstimating where these hairs would be. So kind of like that. Okay, so that was a nice little divergent point for me. Really important. I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of that, but again, it's gonna be a lot of curving around and then shift click. Sorry, not shift click. A lot of click drag and then click on the anchor point. Click drag and then click on the anchor point. Click drag, click on the anchor point, so on and so forth. Yeah, you guys get the drill. All right. Well, this is pretty fun over here, so I'm gonna definitely kind of bring this out. Yeah, and just do the best you can. Yeah. Again, I know some of you folks are going to have more complicated vectors than others when you're doing your own personal portrait. Yeah, so maybe something to keep in mind when you're choosing your photo. Yeah, so which photo do you think will be the will give you the least amount of trouble? But of course you want to balance that with like, oh, how do is this the image that I want to put forth as well? Yeah, so sometimes you might have to just kind of bite the bullet, be like, okay, well, this picture's complicated, but that is me, and that is how you want to represent yourself. I would probably suggest just go with that then. All right, okay, so it's getting really granular at this point. I am so closed up on here. Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. Okay, sorry, this may be giving some people some motion sickness. So I'll try to avoid doing that too much. Okay, by the way, so I'm doing this on my trackpad. Okay, again, if you folks do have access to a trackpad or a Wacom drawing tablet or something like that, feel free to use that. However, this is something that a lot of people honestly rather do on their mouse anyway, so that's there for you as well. All right, okay, I'm kind of seeing this part right here. This is pretty chaotic as far as the hair that's involved, so I'm probably gonna make a judgment call on here and then maybe shut this down. I don't usually doing these. I don't usually end up going this far in, but I don't know. Depends on, I guess, my mood. Okay, so we're gonna go here. Okay, and all right, we're starting to get there. So we got that going on. Right over here. Okay, and note, main thing is get the flow. Yeah, if you don't get it exactly perfect, that's fine. You just want to make sure though that it does feel like the hair is kind of working in a manner that is not stilted. Yeah, so it actually feels like the body and the positioning of the hair makes sense. All right, so I'm almost kind of done with this area. Okay, I know like the next part is going to be very interesting because I'm going to have to get into the blending, because sometimes what happens with this is, especially when you get near the clothes are going to blend very, very well with whatever's happening. Okay, so that can get messy. Okay, all right. So click, drag, then anchor point, click, drag, and then anchor point. All right, so this is looking pretty good. I'm probably gonna run with that. Okay, now over here, it looks like there's not a lot of hair that's like going over her shoulder from this side. The other side though, I know for a fact is. So what I'm gonna do here is just kind of work my way over. Okay, I can see the shoulder, which is totally fine. I'm also noticing right about here, there is like some hair overlap. So I may actually use that to our advantage. Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of drop this off here. Okay, and then this will look kind of cool, I think. Yeah, just having a little bit of hair kind of going over her her top. Okay, so you got a little bit. Yeah, that'll add a little bit more like body. It's kind of neat. All right about there. And then, oh man, yeah, it is super hard to see here. Yeah, so maybe I'll go here and then around to here. Okay. Like again, if you're doing something similar and this is where you kind of draw the line, yeah, I would not at all tell you that's not the way to go. Yeah, totally fine. This one though, I am gonna kind of go around the neck. Yeah, so it's not really the hair. I know the hair continues back there, but it is really important that the neck doesn't get overly involved. The other thing I'm gonna really focus in on is, because this is above the skin layer, I want to make sure that I am kind of overlapping this. Okay, and I noticed like even in my other image, my example one, I didn't do as good of a job as I didn't do as thorough of a job because I completely forgot about this ear. So there's an ear over here in the earring. Okay, so that's there, by the way. So your call if you want to mess with that. Yeah, in your portraits. Yeah, so it is up to you how much detail you want to put in here. All right, so I'm kind of moving through. All right, and then here we go. Okay, now another thing that people are gonna wrestle with a little bit is our baby hairs. Yeah, baby hairs make things very confusing because they're kind of, it's kind of sad to say, but like although they are babies, they're also kind of homeless. Yeah, they just kind of are like in sparse areas. So you need to be careful with that. Sometimes probably the best way to kind of deal with that is just kind of throw them in a net. Yeah, so you notice like even though there's this gap over here, I'm gonna just kind of throw them in a net. That way they don't, like, it doesn't look like there's like a zipper going down the middle of a person's face or their forehead. Yeah. Another thing that I like to do sometimes with this part is, like, if you notice that the hair is coming off the scalpel, which is what's happening over here, you know, so you can kind of clearly see that. What you might want to do is add a little bit of these little ridges, okay, and that'll give the impression like, okay, this is like the origins of that hair. Yeah. Okay, and then it looks like I'm going to right here. If you notice, that was an interesting jump that I made over here, but the main reason why is because I see the shadow. Yeah, so I see that shadow over there, so I already know like, okay, that is not hair, and I'm gonna have to use my color to differentiate that area. Okay, so some of this is like observation, and again, if you don't get it exactly right, that is not a problem. Yeah, the main thing is that you're considering it at least. All right. Okay. So this area, whoops, that was pretty bad. Okay. This area right here is where it starts to get a little bit more confusing. Yeah. So I'm seeing this, then I just realized, okay, here's another hair over here. Okay. And then, but over here, this is where we're starting to get into. Is that shadow? Is that hair? Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of pull into there a little bit. Yeah. Interesting choices that I'm having to make. Once again, just like with the other side, I'm going to stop off right where the neck starts and follow the neck. And to make it a little bit more interesting for myself, I'm also probably going to grab some of these hairs. Yeah, so I really like the curl of this, so I'm going to use it. Yeah, and so I'm kind of going around. Okay, you may notice while I'm doing this that I am not quite matching even the thickness of the original hair. Yeah. And so, yeah, again, that's a stylistic choice that I'm personally making because I want to have, I want the hair to be, I kind of like the shape of the hair, so I kind of want it to stand out a little bit more than it actually does in the actual photo. Yeah, so right about there. Okay, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening. It'll be nice to like eventually zoom out and see what's happening. In fact, I'm gonna do that right now, and you may notice some weird things going on. The great part, I am definitely outlining the hair, yeah, and I'm not going into the hair. You notice I'm staying as outside as possible. One of the bad things that you're probably gonna notice is that the fill is weird, yeah. Right up until this area, this line right here, all the fill makes sense. It's staying within the boundaries of the hair. Of the vectors that I'm making, right? But once I get to this point right here, you notice my last click and my first click, they have kind of a special relationship. So they're always trying to like enclose the fill between them, you know? So you can kind of notice like it just kind of does this diagonal in here, okay? This is one of those points where you just pretty much trust the process as you finish up and go around and then out and then over the side, and then you reconnect over here, you will eventually have your entirety of your vector, your shape, yeah, will fully be closed. Yeah, so it's gonna happen. It will happen. It's just like right now, it's kind of odd looking, yeah. All right, okay, I like that here, so I'm gonna keep that. Again, kind of picking and choosing, yeah. So this is pretty much your call how you want to do these. Yeah, but again, all we're doing is we're getting better at vectoring, okay? And yeah, this is like once you master this tool, it's so helpful, especially when you're doing like After Effects videos. Yeah, there's a certain look to it that kind of works really well with a lot of like motion graphic stuff. Yeah, so yeah, we're not just doing this to give you a hard time. Yeah, we really do want you folks to kind of get better at using the pen tool as much as possible. All right, so a couple of things here. I don't know, I'm probably gonna cut short this. So like I just kind of want this little hook. Yeah, so they're going around. Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, yeah, and then we're here. Okay, and then we're here. Okay, and then we're here. Okay, and then I'll probably get this back to this part of the hair right there. Whoops. Yeah, so right over here. Okay, all right, so the rest of this, yeah, just gotta blast through. Yeah, so click, drag, click on the anchor point, click, drag, click on the anchor point. A lot of extra hair over here. Not really going to entertain most of it. Just kind of making sure that we get the overall gist of the flow. All right. Okay. All right. Now, some of you folks may have been wondering about what is the more advanced version of this. The more advanced version of vectoring would be keeping both of your handles. Yeah, so you notice whenever you click on that anchor point, the handle that's facing outwards in the direction that we're going, it goes away, and that's helpful when we're starting out vectoring, yeah, because it is a little bit harder to have the next point, especially if there's a strong change in direction. It's really kind of difficult for a vector to like just change directions like that. Yeah. So, however, because we are just starting out, or a lot of us have like don't have a lot of experience with this Illustrator tool. Like maybe you only like experienced or used it like in a few classes, or some simpler images. If you are working with that extra handle, it requires you to have to kind of go back and do some cleanup on the handles, working on one side and then the other. So it's just something that like hopefully as you get better at this tool you can like explore again. If that's something that you legitimately want to mess around with, just let me know. There are also like I know a lot of resources, yeah, that will kind of help you out like online and stuff too. All right, okay, getting there. Who knew hair was this crazy? Yeah. Okay. One thing you probably noticed too is like the one of the things about this hair is that there's a definitely Winona went to a hairstylist, yeah, for this. So damn our hairstylist. Yeah, but no, it's really cool. This is really good practice, and like you can use this for a lot of stuff that are a big part of the artist's lifestyle, yeah, or even your branding. So like your logos and stuff like that. If you can, please use Illustrator for it. Yeah, especially if you become you end up with stuff that you want to like have bear your logo on, where there's like shirts or a business card or like posters or like a collab or something like that. Yeah, if you can get this in vector form, it's so helpful for any of those kinds of items, because you just pass on this vector, and no matter what size the eventual logo or brand needs to be, it'll end up like maintaining its mathematical proportions. Yeah, so even if you print this out like super large on a banner that's saying, oh yeah, you have your grand opening or you're collabing with another creator, okay, they can print it out on a big banner and it won't lose any of its quality. Yeah, which is something unfortunately we can't say with something you made like in Photoshop. All right, so that's our image right there. Notice I went back to this area right here and kind of closed that up. Okay, and then there's our hair. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of center everything on here. See how it looks, yeah. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, maybe about here. All right, and then our hair base layer is done, our skin base layer is done, so we have both of those things. Okay, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go to my guide image, I'm gonna hide it, okay? The other thing I'm gonna do with the hair base layer, yeah, it was at 70%, I'm gonna push this to 100, okay, and then I can kind of take a look, and then you'll notice that it's kind of coming together, yeah, sort of. Okay, now one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna zoom in on this area. If you notice, I kind of had like a little bit of a challenge as far as the skin tone goes. So I'm gonna go to the base layer for the hair, bring that down, and then I'm also going to unlock my skin base layer, click on that circle, and I'm gonna do a little bit of an edit. And here's how you can edit things. If you click on this white arrow, yeah, this is your direct selection tool. If you click on a point, you can actually move it around. Yeah, so if I have my picture here, yeah, you can kind of see it. Like I can move that around. The other thing you can do with that is you can go to the handles and you can change it. So like right over here, I'm kind of noticing the curve didn't quite reach where I wanted it to reach. So I'm gonna click and drag it a little bit. Then you notice now I'm kind of dropping it behind the hair, which is a little bit more helpful, because in reality, we don't want it to be like have a gap right there. Yeah, so if we take a look at over here, not bad. This looks like an issue over here, so I'm going to click on this anchor point again, still on the direct select tool, and kind of bring that out. And then this one right here, maybe bring this back out too. Remember, this area is sort of okay if it overlaps, yeah, because we don't really care too much about that particular that shape. The hair is going to cover it anyway. All right, so now we got our skin base layer and our hair base layer. So I'm going to get back to my hair base layer, put this at 100%. By the way, I dropped the opacity so I could just see where I was dropping off the skin base layer at, and then I'm gonna lock that layer as well. Yeah. Oh, looks like there's a little bit more I should be cleaning up over here. Yeah. So right in this area, very very minimal. Yeah. And again, this is like micro look at things. So you're looking at something that like only you're pretty much privy to at this point. But yeah, I can kind of move these around, so I'm gonna go with that. Get my skin base layer, my direct select tool, probably bring this out a little bit. Yeah, so just slightly. And then notice I click on the point first, make it active, and then click and drag. Yeah. And again, if there's anything that you do and you're like, I didn't like that, no problem. Remember, all you have to do is do your Command Z. Yeah, and that'll like jump you back out. All right. Okay, so we got this base. Yeah. One thing you're probably noticing is like her forehead is it feels extended, yeah, but once we start putting in a lot of the face details, yeah, things will come into place. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and hide my skin layer, skin base layer, and my hair base layer. All right, so now we have our additional layers. So skin base layer, hair base layers, all kind of set. Here's the other things that we're gonna start adding. Yeah, so if you take a look down the list, a bunch of different things. Here are the main ones that you probably want to make sure that you separate out. You do want a layer for your eyes. If you notice, I do have a lot of pupil stuff, yeah, so that is going to be for those additional details. So you can kind of take a look at them a little bit more close on here. Okay, the eye's not exactly the most detailed right now. You could probably stand to have a little bit more detail, but for now, you know, it's pretty good. Pupils, basically bottom circle. Yeah, if you notice, I am there's not much in this layer. Yeah, we have our pupils over here, and then we have that area right there, and then we have our highlights right over there. Yeah, so those three sections are kind of piled on top of each other. Those should be pretty quick to make. Additionally, things to keep in mind, yeah, lashes, yeah, also nostrils. Okay, I'll talk to you a little bit about the nostrils as we build it. One thing you don't want to do with the nostrils is you don't want to like overdraw, especially for anything with the nose, because if you do, then it kind of looks like you just kind of stuck the nose directly on the character. A few other things that I did add on here's lips. I did the highlights on here. That's not necessarily a requirement. It kind of depends. Some people again are gonna have like heavy makeup on in their portrait anyway that they're building off of, so you may not even be including this. And even lip color, some people may stylistically decide that they want to keep it similar to the skin tone, so that's going to be your call. Some people like to have their lips accentuated, yeah, and that's where you would kind of like add in a different base color. Other things on here that are pretty important, we do have the lips middle, yeah, so that's for the separator right over here. And then we do have the hair base, which we kind of went over, and then the eyeliner. Yeah, so the eyeliner, I actually dropped the opacity. So if you notice, this circle over here is at 51%, and that's just so that it kind of adds a nice little fade in, but we can kind of see what's going on in the back as well. You'll also notice one interesting part is I kind of used that eyeliner layer to also put in this additional detail for the nose. Yeah, so it looks a little bit better. Before, it kind of felt like the nose was blending a little bit too much with the shadow. Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of definition there. Okay, so again, that's the main things. The other thing I want you folks to kind of look at and kind of think about doing is here's how your portrait would kind of look if you don't do like any shadow stuff or any highlights. Yeah, so I'm gonna hide the highlights here. I'm gonna hide the shadow for the nose, or the details for the nose. I'm gonna hide the lips highlight, and then I'm going to hide the skin shadow. Yeah, and right off the bat, you kind of felt it as it was kind of going away, but the biggest things that are affecting how your portrait is kind of like interpreted is the skin shadow. Yeah, so you notice this provides a lot of detail. This gives us that additional information, yeah, as far as like the structure of the face versus without it. Some people do like this style. For me, it always feels a little bit incomplete. Yeah, so I like to have at least one skin shadow layer. Notice I'm not even really worrying about a highlight layer. That would be something if I had a little bit more time, I would probably drop it off in here. The other thing you'll notice is the hair highlights. Yeah, so as soon as like we took that away, yeah, there is like a massive, massive difference between having it versus not. Yeah, so my suggestion is in terms of priority when you're building the rest of this. Yeah, oh no, her head. Let me bring back the hair. Okay, is the priorities after you get your skin base and after you get your hair base, is to make sure that you do address the eyes, of course. Yeah, so even if you're only just doing the eyes and the pupil, yeah, even if you're just doing those two, I would probably suggest you also put in the center point right there and the highlights. Yeah, so that kind of gives a lot more life. If you notice, the further I hide it, the more it starts to look like it's dying. Yeah, there's no life in those eyes. Other things that I would suggest you make sure you bring in, right, is any kind of lashes. I did tether the lashes to the um, I did tether the lashes to the eyebrows. Sorry. So if you had to choose, like usually most of us are gonna do eyebrows, yeah, unless like you had like a horrible accident recently, or maybe it's intentional. I apologize if it's intentional. Also, though, like for eyebrows, you probably end up keeping lashes. Tend to be one of those things that like some people want to accentuate their eyebrows, some do not. Yeah, so that's gonna be your call. Yeah, some styles you're not even gonna need it. For sure, if you can have lips, for lips you may actually end up only doing something like this, where you do kind of like the division over here, and then maybe the lips end up being a lighter color. Yeah, but again, based off of this image, that feels like that's based off of this image, that feels like that's a requirement, yeah, for her to look like this, actually to look like Winona Ryder. Additionally, if you can make sure that you get those, yeah, so that's going to be your main priorities. Yeah, so again, we'll make sure you got your skin base, your hair base, your lips, at least the divider, okay, and your eyes. And I would suggest don't skimp. Yeah, make sure you get all parts of the pupils, including the highlights. Brows, yeah, please make sure you do make a layer for the brows at least, okay. And last but not least, yeah, as far as the requirements are going to be the nostrils. Yeah, so if you can make sure you do have a nostrils layer. If not, it's gonna feel kind of weird. Yeah, okay. If you notice, for the nostrils, like the noses can be very confusing, because what'll happen is it'll kind of like, it's really easy to trace like this for your nose. Like you kind of just do all of this, go down here, come back around, and then end up right over here. But then again, it really separates the nose out from the face, which is a weird look. It almost looks like if you're a swimmer and then you just put like sunscreen, but just on your nose. Yeah, probably don't want to do a separator like that. So whenever you're doing the nose, usually, yeah, my suggestion is when you're doing that portion is like really just focus in on where the nostrils are. Yeah, so 1 and 2. In fact, this might be a little bit strong, so I would actually maybe kind of dial that back a little bit, but that works out pretty well. And the other thing is, if you notice, everything else as far as face structure gets put in with the skin shadow. Yeah, so if you get the chance, and I highly suggest you do attempt this, is to try to make a shadow layer. So I'll probably demo that a little bit on the other side. But yeah, if you can make sure that you address that, yeah, this is a game changer as far as like that is what makes the rest of your portrait look really good, and gives a lot more structure, and it just kind of adds a little bit more realism to what you're trying to put together. Yeah, and then of course hair highlights. Yeah, if you get your shadow in, try to hit your hair highlights. Yeah, those two things are again, they make a big difference. Yeah. All right, so yeah, let's kind of real quickly, I can kind of take a look at this one, and then real quickly we'll kind of, I just wanted to demonstrate the shadow making. Yeah, so I'm gonna make a new layer. If you notice, I made a new layer. Sometimes your layer will end up at the top, yeah, or randomly someplace else. If you ever want to move your layer, obviously you can click on it, you can drag it wherever that blue highlighted line shows up, yeah, between the layers, that's where it's going to be dropped off at, yeah. So I do want it below the hair base layer because I do want it to be covered by the hair if I ever need it, yeah. And then just we can drop this off over here. Um, this will be my skin, and then I'm going to call this shadow, yeah, layer. So skin shadow layer. Definitely all my other layers are locked, so that works out for me. I'm going to click on the circle to make sure that layer is fully selected. Also, I am going to use a color that was used prior. Yeah, so if you notice, I'm going to my eyedropper. I'm going to click on this. Yeah, that's going to get me that color in the foreground. And then I'm going to double click on the color picker, yeah, and that'll give me the color over here. Now, if I want a shadow, I'm not going to directly sample again. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use the color palette that already exists in here. So if you notice, this tells me exactly where my current skin base shade is, or skin base color is. I'm then going to get a shade. So I'm going to kind of bring this down a bit. Yeah, so you notice I'm kind of dropping it vertically. Okay, we want contrast. We don't want too much contrast. Yeah, so this is a part where you probably only need to have to drop it a little bit. Yeah, and then I'm going to click on OK. There's a nice little color that should work for me as far as the shadow goes. I am also going to go up and check my layers. You notice that took that shadow color. Checking my stroke again, that's back at zeros. This circle is still selected, so that means when I drop my opacity, when I make my vector, I should be able to see through. Okay, now there's a couple layers that are in the way still, so that I do have my hair base layer and my skin base layer. I'm going to move those out of the way. Then I'm just going to really quickly do a little vectoring for the shadow. Yeah, so you're gonna have to make some judgment calls on here as you're doing this. There are gonna be parts like it's really kind of up to you where you draw the line as like, oh, this is shadow versus this is just gonna be the base skin tone. And yeah, so try to figure out what you like about it. Yeah, so what you think like works for you. Yeah, so I'm kind of looking like right about here, feels about right. And then I'm and then I'm gonna click over there and drag this around. Yeah, and then I'm noticing like there's a little bit of shadow over here, and then I think that'll kind of work. And then I'm gonna make my way around. Yeah, so right over here. Let me see. Let's get a little bit closer. All right, perfect. And then I'm gonna start to make this portion. Yeah, so again, click drag. Yeah, same as usual. Yeah, nothing too nothing that we haven't done before with our portrait. And I'm gonna kind of work my way around down through over here. Okay, one thing you'll probably notice, is that the shadow is going to pretty much encompass the entirety of the chin and the bottom of the face and the jaw and all of that. Yeah, so as we're doing this, it looks like we're gonna double back around to get the inside boundaries of the shadow. Yeah, so it looks like I can go to right about there. It's pretty good. Okay, now right here is where it gets a little bit tricky. Again, I'm guesstimating a little bit where the shadow is going there. Yeah, so kind of up here, not super clear on where that's going to be, but that'll kind of work. Okay, I noticed the shadow's kind of going down over here as well, so this is where I can start to bring in that detail. And again, you're using your own personal judgment, and again, any portrait that you're working on, this is going to be a little bit different. Yeah, so make sure like as you're going that you just are like trying it out. We can always move these points afterwards. Remember, we do have the direct select tool, so that lets us still edit. Yeah. Okay, another thing to keep in mind over here is as you're building this, you can also kind of jump out for a little bit just to see how it looks. Well, it's Hannibal Lecter. Okay, so when you put on here, you can kind of see, okay, this is what's going on so far. Okay, interesting. Yeah, it looks like definitely she's dealing with masking. She's masking up. Yeah, something we're all probably somewhat familiar with at least. Okay, and then we can kind of continue with this. So I'm kind of seeing like a little bit going down here, so a little bit of shadow. Yeah, And if you can't see, which is a legitimate concern sometimes when you're working on this, you can always, in the shadow settings, yes, if I go to here, you can always bring it down lower. Yeah, so I'm gonna bring down that to maybe about 30 instead, and hopefully that gives me just a little bit more visual. Yeah, so just got to be careful where you draw that line, because obviously if you make it too light, you're gonna have a really hard time like just seeing your vectors, yeah, as you're going. Yeah, you might see the outline over here, but it might end up being really hard to see, like, oh, is that exactly the location and exactly the color that you wanted? Okay, so right, looking pretty good. Again, just kind of wanted to show you this really quickly, so that like when you're doing your own portrait, you have something to like refer to. But I know a bunch of you are probably already like, I can do this. I can already kind of feel this out. Yeah, so don't feel like you have to stick around for this whole portion, or like you can kind of fast forward this if you want. Okay, but all right, getting to the outside of the cheek, and then kind of looks like right about here kind of closes up. So we'll see. Feels a little bit thick over here, so I may end up actually switching that up a little bit. Yeah, but let's take a look at it. Yeah, so I'm gonna zoom out. Okay, and then this is what I have so far. It looks pretty wild, but when I hide the picture in the back and I click outside, you're gonna start to see, all right, some of the structure is kind of showing right over there. Yeah, so even if this is not the best, it is still definitely adding some depth. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of continue with this. Again, some of this is just kind of like is, I wouldn't exactly say guesswork, but you're at least doing some you're at least like making some judgment calls. Yeah, so there is a little bit of like, okay, feeling it out. Right, maybe here, kind of like having a little bit of the corners too, so your mouth does kind of shadow up over here too. You'll notice that like once I know that it's going to overlap with something else, like I know the lips are going to be above this, I'm being not very conservative at all. I'm just kind of like making sure that I'm covering that area. Yeah, all right, maybe about to there. That feels all right. So it feels like I might have to come back to that. Okay, the biggest one is going to be, the biggest challenge on here is going to be the nose. Again, remember, we don't want to do anything where it feels like the nose is like is just fully traced. Yeah, we want to let the shadows speak for it a bit. Okay, so if you notice, again, I'm getting sort of that bottom area of the nose instead of anything else, and then it kind of looks like this right here. There's a little slight turn. I'm also gonna pay attention to this portion right here. Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of go up, and I'm gonna use the shadow, or what comes of this part, to define the edge of the nostril. Yeah, so I'm kind of going in here. Okay, jump up. All right. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. Definitely over here, we can kind of tell where our lighting source is, yeah, based on like where the shadow is over here. The other thing you'll notice about noses is that although they are like literal holes, they're not going to be like enclosed. Yeah, so they're not like manholes where if you take a look at it, you can kind of see all the way around. Yeah, you can kind of see this top boundary, but this part over here, it's more of like an opening, and it's like more shadow. Yeah, so you got to kind of be careful about that area. Oops, I think there's one more thing I wanted to do here before I jumped into there. So again, I am using this to create the outline of the nostril a bit. So this is going to be like my boundary. Okay, again, I'm going to keep this super thin right over here. So boom, then right over there. Okay, and then right when I get to this part, in fact, maybe even a little bit higher, I'll kind of see how this turns out, is there we go. Okay, and then there's our outline for the nose. Yeah, once again, we can kind of test out how does this look. Yeah, so I'm going to jump to this shade, bring that back, and then hide my guide image, and then I can kind of click outside. Okay, then now you can kind of see, okay, we have our our nose details, yeah. So we're getting there. The last thing, I think you folks can kind of take it from here. So I'm gonna like let you get to it after this. But the last thing though is like any nose details. Yeah, this is again, this is one of those judgment calls. I am going to do a little bit of this area right here. This will help us define the nose a little bit, even though it's not like super clear that there's a shadow over here. This stuff will help us like kind of explain like where is the bridge like visually. Yeah, so hopefully that kind of helps us with our color. Yeah, so yeah, again, very like feeling it out, and I do have the option to change this up later, yeah, which I appreciate in these kinds of softwares, yeah, as opposed to drawing in like permanent, yeah. All right, and then we definitely want to get the eyes at some point. So if you notice, I'm gonna kind of do this. Some of this again is it's not super straightforward, so I'm kind of guessing where certain things are. Okay, and yeah, we rub about here. Okay, eyes, bottom of the eyes, yeah, and then there's a little bit of a shine right over here, so I'm gonna kind of bump back out. All right, that's pretty cool. And then right there, and then maybe bring it back right over here. So we're gonna go around the eyes. This is actually gonna end up looking pretty cool right here, because even though like I'm skipping the eye portion for building this, you are gonna be able to see like a really, you're gonna kind of see where the eye would have been, which looks like really cool. Yeah, so right over here and then right over there. Yeah, so that kind of looks like that's a good line for the eyes. Again, I will bring back this skin base layer. Okay, and then I'm gonna click outside. And then again, our details are really falling into place over here, yeah, because now we can kind of see, okay, this is where the eye would be, yeah. A couple things too, like I'm not liking this shadow very much. Yeah, I feel like I kind of overdid that a little bit. If you ever want to fix that up, yeah, remember you can just kind of go into your, make sure your layer is selected. We can use our direct select point, and we can click on points. We can move them around. We can also use these to adjust. Yeah, so let's say I wanted this more further down, or maybe I just don't want it to like be as defining, so maybe I'll pull this inwards. I feel like the more important part is going to be this area anyway, so I'm not going up here, and then I can kind of drop these into here. If I don't like a curve or anything, I can click on the handles. Yeah, so oops, so I'm going to click on this one, activate it, and then I'm going to go and find the handle and use that to round it out. This is a really weird point, so you can kind of use that to clean that out as well. Oh my, okay, there you go. All right, and so like hopefully that'll look a little bit better when I kind of bring it back. This looks a little better, this one I definitely, I'm not a big fan of this one, so may end up bringing this out and bringing this quite a bit in, yeah, and kind of use that right there. Yeah, so you can kind of use something like that. All right, but again, yeah, so what we're doing here is going to end up kind of making a lot more sense when we get to over here. Basically, right, with that new layer, this is what we kind of built. Okay, is going to be right here. Yeah, so that's the outline that I'm kind of using. If you notice, I didn't put as much shadow on this one, so looks like that might have been a little bit of a jump for me, and I might have found out like the last time I was making this, but yeah, that'll definitely give you a lot more structure. And then when you bring in your when you add that in with your other details, it's gonna end up looking super cool. Yeah, because it works with the eyes, works with the lashes. I'm trying to hurry up on this because yeah, the middle positioning is not the most beautiful. Also outlining, eyeliner, where's my lashes? There you go, lashes and eyebrows. Okay, and then sorry, I did hide the white. I actually ended up deciding against putting the neck in here, and then of course your hair highlights. Yeah, and this one is gonna be if you put in work on here, it's really gonna be a game changer. Yeah, so hopefully you do get the chance to do that. So anyway, yep, that's how you can kind of put together a portrait. Again, keep your layers labeled. Yeah, that'll help you out a lot. And then don't forget, yeah, as you're building, please do make sure you lock your layers. Yeah, so you aren't like accidentally putting things in layers that you're not expecting to, and then you have to like go track it down. But yeah, so that's how you can put together a portrait. So best of luck putting together yours.